Hello, welcome to this short video, which should just give you some idea of what to expect when you start Media Studies A-Level at Waldegrave next year. So, first of all, just some things to get you started thinking about the kind of topics that we cover. So, when we look at Media Studies, we look at the kind of the industry behind it. We don't just look at kind of media texts. So, we think about why certain texts get made or who finances certain texts. Who profits from various texts, and be thinking about, when you're making something, making choices about genre and audience, all those kind of issues. We'll also be thinking about the target audience and, why do they go for certain things? So how they're targeted, how they respond to texts, what influences the kind of choices that we all make as an audience. We will look at kind of changes in the media. So we look at news and we think about how news has changed from like a traditional newspaper format, and looking at the idea of something like BuzzFeed and the influence it's had on how news gets reported or what kind of stories get reported. I would look at big changes in terms of technology and thinking about, what steps have changed how we interact, how we consume, how we buy, and how we circulate text. So looking at things like video games and kind of the massive change that's been sort of going on in that industry, and then changes that are going to happen with the new Xbox and new PS5. So looking at kind of big technological shifts as well. And then thinking about future ideas. So TV has changed radically over the last 10 years. Video games have changed radically. What will happen in the next 10? So we'll be thinking about, those kind of big issues. We're not just looking at the text when we think about media studies. So this is what the course will be like. So 2 year, it's linear, there are 3 components. So the first component 1, this looks at kind of a wide range of industries. So we will look at video games, advertising, newspapers, music video, radio, film marketing. So there's kind of basically breadth we do with this unit. There's an exam at the end, and the exam is an element of unseen. So you'll have to kind of watch something and look at something and analyze and think about what's happening in that particular media text. So you could be tested on a range of media text, and there's lots of kind of like big questions, smaller 2-mark questions, 10-mark questions. So it's kind of a fairly broad look at media studies. Component 2 is a little bit different. So this is where we look in depth. So there are fewer industries that we look at, but we look at them in precise detail. So we do magazines, we do online media, and we do television. So those are the 3 kind of media forms that we look at. And in there we look at, there are set texts we have to study. So for example, with television, we do humans. And then there's an element, we've got to look at text from other countries, we've got to look at text in history, so we look at 1960s Vogue magazine. So basically fewer texts, but much more detailed. And then the last part, so this is your coursework unit, so non-exam assessment. So this is where you do a cross-media production, so you've got to make something. And there are basically 4 briefs you get to choose from: music video, film marketing, television, and magazines. And within there, you have to make several texts that kind of link together. So you might make, for example, a music video and then a website to go along with it. Or you might make a magazine, and then you've got to do a sort of a television advert for that magazine. So it's those kind of things that link together. So we look at component 1 is breadth, component 2 is depth, component 3 is coursework. And there you go. Those are the forms that you'll be studying: advertising, marketing, film, newspapers, radio, video games, television, magazines, online media. So this is the key part of media studies. So for those of you who've done it at GCSE, lots of this will be very familiar to you. So everything you do gets assessed along these 4 frameworks. So we think about media language. So these are the kind of choices that people make when they make a media text. So we talk about codes and conventions. It can be camera codes, it can be editing codes, it can be lighting codes, it can be genre codes, it can be character codes. So all the kind of decisions that directors and producers make in terms of why use that camera angle? Why light something in that particular way? Why use that particular font? Why lay it out that particular way? So that's media language. So a lot of that is you analyzing set text and then possibly compare it to an unseen text. Representation is how the media portrays groups or events. So we look at things like ethnicity. So how the media portrays various ethnic groups, or gender, or age, or we look at kind of nationalities or regions. But basically, kind of, again, choices that are made in terms of how groups get represented by the media. Then we look at industries, so people who make the media, so how they produce it, how they distribute it, how it then gets circulated around the audience. So we always look at media in context, not just the text, but kind of the industry that has created it. So, for example, we'll compare two films. At the moment, it's comparing Black Panther with I, Daniel Blake. So we look at the idea of a large conglomerate like Disney and producing a Marvel film to a global audience, massive budgets, special effects, big actors, versus I, Daniel Blake, which is a kind of low-budget British film. And it's a very different film to Black Panther. So we look at kind of industry. And then audiences. So this is essentially how audiences are categorized, how they're targeted, how a text then reaches the audience, what the audience does with that text, kind of responses that are made, and then how they're positioned, how they feel about that particular thing. So those are kind of aspects that we look at. In component one, they tend to be separate. So there'll be a question on language, question on representation, etc. In component two, because of that depth, you might combine everything. You might be linking audience to industry to media language. And then again, when you make something component three, you have to address all these issues yourself. Okay, whizzing on. So one of the things we do quite a lot is analyze something. So we might ask you to analyze a music video and think about what kind of choices are made or why they're made, and thinking about why this exists, what it's trying to do, what effects it's trying to have on its audience. So for example, let's see if this technology works. I'll show you one now. We'll think, not the whole thing, we'll just have a think about what kind of decisions were made in this particular one. Okay, let's go to work. There we go. So we're thinking about the kind of camera angles. Why begin with that wide shot, that long shot? What image is being trying to convey through this particular thing? So then we edit. Again, we can think about representations. So what are they saying about ethnic groups? What are they saying about men? As we go through, you can see that gender becomes a big element of this. So we've got femininity, we've got masculinity. Once we get into here, you can see ideas about wealth. So, kind of social issues. You'll see in a moment, hopefully, this idea of wealthy, the celebrity. Okay, go a little bit longer. Okay, so thinking about, comes in a moment. Again, this idea of the angles. So, the lighting we're seeing in these particular shots. So why go long? Why have that backlighting? And again, you've got this idea of black and white. So is it linking to ideas of ethnicity? This is actually a kind of weird mix of an advert and a music video. So you'll think about, what is the purpose of that? Why would an advert create a music video? What are they trying to do? Again, we're thinking about, things like use of slow motion. So why have this kind of slow pace? So this is quite a good one, thinking about gender representation, ideas of celebrity, ideas of wealth. And kind of moving camera work, how it goes through all of that. What is it trying to do? And as we get through here, you can start to see that all these people are looking directly at the camera, essentially looking at you. So thinking about how it makes the audience feel as we kind of walk through this landscape. And it turns out that is who they were looking at. That is the kind of central protagonist in the story. And then we see the male protagonist. Again, we can think about gender representation. We'll stop it there. And we'll hopefully go back onto here. Yes. Okay, so that's the kind of thing we'll be asking you to do. And again, we could do that with magazines, we could do it with television, do it online media. So this idea that we can analyze something in component one, you'll be doing kind of unseen versions of that as well. So that gives you hopefully some idea of what media studies will entail. So to give you a fuller flavor, there should be some tasks on the website. So your job is to complete all of those. One of those is to have a go at analyzing music video yourself. So it gives you some pointers about how you could do it in terms of the technical, in terms of the visuals. So analyzing those codes and thinking about what's in there and why is it there, what effect is it going to have on the audience. So you can access that via the website. And then just as a kind of thing you need to be thinking about, you need to make sure you're organized and ready. So you need to make sure you've got folders for this. And within that folder, these dividers for all the different units. So you've got to bring those, you've got to bring your own paper, your own pens, etc. And then as we get through, there will be textbooks that you need to buy as well. But just to make sure that you're kind of organized and on it yourself. I look forward to seeing you in September.